So, it's 3 a.m. and I was sleeping in my bed with only one thing on my mind. Gnomes. Fucking gnomes. Like, what actually is a gnome? How did the myth of the gnomes themselves originate? From where in the world? By what type of people? Is it possible that gnomes were actually real? Or that they were misinterpreted as some other species that was alive at the time? Or maybe even still exists? Is this still considered a gnome? So in today's video, we are going to get down to the question of what is a gnome and the history of gnomes. And for the first question, no. These are not gnomes. These are figurines. You can't just charge more money and call them gnomes and expect people to pay more. These are not gnomes.
I'm a motherfucking gnome.
Now, gnome history could be complicated because there's at least 2 different countries that people believe could have been the main origins of gnomes themselves, at least the mythical version of them. And these 2 countries are Scandinavia and Norway. So, to begin the video, we're going to be talking about the history of gnomes from the Scandinavian view. Then we're going to be talking about it from the view of the Norwegians. To start off with, we're going to be talking about Scandinavian gnomes. Scandinavian gnomes are no taller than 3 feet high and have small beards, usually white or brown in nature. These are not garden gnomes as we know them today. Garden gnomes originated in either Germany or Britain by different accounts. But we're talking about the natural gnome creatures that wander around the world in the mythic lore, in legends, or it may be in possible fact. Now, what are the origins of the Scandinavian gnomes? How did they come to be? Well, one of the main legends that the Scandinavians have is that the first farmers of the lands who started growing crops in Scandinavia died, and when they died, they became gnomes. And their job was to go around and make sure that people took care of their property and that they grew crops on it. Imagine you died and you're just like, hey God, I'm ready to go to heaven. I'm ready to go see my wife and kids. It's been so long, I've been so lonely. It's time, God. It's time. And then God just said, you know what? You're the first farmer on this land, so here's a red hat. Okay. And then we're gonna give you a beard, make it 3 feet tall, and you're gonna protect this garden and make sure people grow crops on it. That's your life now. You are going to do this for eternity because you grew crops. This part of gnomeology seems to be only part of Scandinavian folklore, as in other parts of Scandinavia and other parts of the world, they believe that gnomes can give birth, but female gnomes can only give birth twice for some reason. Scandinavian gnomes are known to be nice in most accounts, but in some accounts they're also known to be a little mischievous. They're known to live under the ground, deep under the burrows of trees in the woods. Some people say gnomes are spirits of the forest because they have an affinity for taking care of plants and animals. The gnomes that you know about today aren't the gnomes of the Scandinavian type. Most of the gnomes that we know about now are from the Dutch influence of gnomes. But the Scandinavian gnome was a little bit more different and less humanoid. It was more of a goblin slash orcic type of creature compared to the gnomes that we know of today. Then you have Norwegian gnomes, which were known as Temet or Nesser gnomes. In some parts of Norway, they have a fun tradition where you have to give a tray of porridge out on New Year's for the gnomes, and if you do that, they might be your friend. And if not, they'll pull pranks on you all around your house. So you better get that porridge, or these guys, they don't want to mess with them. They're gonna fuck you up. You better. Where's that porridge, boy? Where's the porridge? Some families in Norway like to leave an empty chair during the holiday times. So maybe the gnome will sit down for dinner, and the reason they would want to do this is because they're supposed to protect your house. So by inviting gnomes over, giving them porridge, they'll protect your house instead of pranking you. So that's kind of cool. That's the Norwegian gnome for you. Now, gnomes are different than garden gnomes. Garden gnomes were first invented in Germany in the 1800s, then came to Britain from the 1830s to the 1840s, where it became very popular to put these little gnomes in your yards. But the production of these gnomes stopped around 1870 to 1880. So after that, the new gnomes started getting in production in the 1960s, and those are the plastic gnomes that you see everywhere today. Now, the real question is, are gnomes real? I wanted to do a bit of research, so I tried to be able to find one myself. So I went online to look up, how to summon a gnome, and then of course you just go down the list and it's just a whole bunch of tutorials about how to summon demons or sex demons. So they're just assuming that if you're just trying to summon a gnome, you're just trying to find a gnome to have sex with, a demon that will turn to a gnome for you. There's a lot of people with a gnome fetish trying to summon demons who will pretend to be gnomes. We're not going to be summoning gnomes today. If we can't summon a gnome from the void, how else are we going to be able to find proof of gnomes? Well, footage of gnomes. A bunch of people were hanging out in a kitchen in Mexico in 2018 when they caught footage of what people believed to be a gnome. One of them fell to the floor and started freaking out after he saw this little creature start walking on the ground. I mean, he does have a little hood, but is it a gnome? We don't know. Now we got more gnome footage. This one's from 2014, where a bunch of people are hanging out, and out of nowhere they see something, and you can watch it for yourself. Is this gnome?
Gnomes are real, but real only see real. So when you say you can see why you blame me, red hats hood class, and I'm up to show up. Who lives when you at your ass, isn't even in the church, do ya?